Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Long Po Cha สอนว่าถ้าไม่ดีให้มันตายถ้าไม่ตายให้มันดี I am going to speak English. I just wanted to start with that. It's translated as, if it doesn't die, if it isn't good, let it die. If it doesn't die, make it good. It's very good advice for practice. Meditation is, I think of it as an acquired taste. I think of meditation as, it's a little bit strange to, as a monk to say this, but I think of meditation a little bit like drinking beer. It's like an acquired taste. So at first, beer doesn't taste good, but then you become a connoisseur and you acquire a taste for it. So meditation is an acquired taste, and we don't drink beer as monks. We don't drink beer as monks, but some of us did as lay people. But we can remember, we can use these analogies. And meditation is an acquired taste. Solitude is an acquired taste. And it can be difficult to meditate. It can be difficult to be with ourselves, to be with our own mind. And we might feel like we want to run away. We don't want to be with our own mind. And being with our own mind can be difficult. It can be scary. And this is where the teaching of anatta, of not self, is very helpful. And it's good at the outset, at the beginning, to remind ourselves the mind is going to do what it's going to do. It's very common when we start to meditate, or if we have been meditating for many years, if we do a meditation retreat and we meditate more than normal, we will think that our mental defilements, our kilate, tanha, we will think that it's become more. This is very common. We think that when we meditate, that our thinking is more, that our kilate is more. This is very normal. But actually, that's not the case. We are just seeing what is already there. It's always there. It's already there. It's just normally we're distracted, or we're going along with it. We're following it. Normally we're following it because we're following it, or we're believing it. We're not seeing it. When we see it, this is called sati. Sati sampajanya. When we stop and we see the mind. This does not mean we make ourselves stop thinking. That's called vibhavatanha. Or if we just go along with everything that we're thinking and we go along with our desires, that's more like bhavatanha. If we try to force ourselves to stop thinking, that's also not correct, according to the Buddha. So we develop this quality that the Buddha taught about, which is very special to Buddhist meditation. It's called sati. Sati is when we see the mind and we don't grab onto it and we don't push it away, but we see it. We see it more clearly. And the more we practice, the more clearly we will see it. And the more we practice, the more clearly we will see the mind. And when the mind is seen clearly, then our great teachers, our Krupa Ajahns, Lumpur Sumedho, and others who you may be familiar with, the mind seen clearly starts to become more bright, more clean, just through that sati, just through that clear seeing. It's not that we force it to be that way. We do want our mind to be pure. We do want our mind to be clean. This is very important, but it only comes about through sati. Sati sampajanya. Sampajanya is, in Thai, it's translated as Rurab. Rurab is knowing around, knowing fully, clear awareness. It's translated in English as clear awareness. So mindfulness and clear awareness, or mindfulness and clear comprehension. Sati sampajanya. This quality is talked about a lot. And it's good to understand what this is at the beginning. Very good to understand what this is. It's all important, because when we cultivate sati sampajanya, then we are taught that all other good qualities come from that. Because when we see clearly, then we know where we're at. Now, it's normal to have sati, and then we might be afraid. We might be afraid of what we see in the mind. Oh, I have so much desire. I have so much kilate. I have so much problem. Now, this is important to recollect anatta, because the mind is just the mind. We have the precepts, the 8 precepts. As long as we are not following our thoughts, we are not acting on them. We might think, I want to kill this person. I want to kill Weepun. He got the chanting wrong. Even if I think that, I'm not going to act on it, hopefully. If I was to act on it, that would be very terrible. But because I have sila, I have seen, I have precept, I will not kill. I undertake the precept to not kill. And so if I have that thought of wanting to kill somebody, I'm not going to do it. So it's good to forgive ourselves if we have the thought, a thought of anger, a thought of ill will. We have sati, so we just see it. Just see it, and then we see. But when we see with wisdom, the important thing is to see the suffering that it causes. That's the first noble truth. That's dukkhang arya sachang. When we see a negative mental state, we have to see it in the way that we see that it causes suffering. When we see that it causes suffering, the heart will start to let go of it. But if we see our own anger and we think, I have to get rid of it. I am so bad. I have so much anger. That's not right. The right way to see it. The right way to see it is dukkhang arya sachang. This is suffering. This is what all of our teachers teach us. This is anger. This is suffering. That's all. So, and when we see it that way, the heart does not want to suffer. When we see with wisdom, panya, then it will start to come out of the suffering. This is so important. In addition to sati, the Buddha has us develop many qualities, many good qualities in our character, in our personality. Tonight, I started thinking of, there's a quality called Saraniya Dhamma. The Saraniya Dhammas are the Dhammas that beautify the practitioner. That is 2, Kanti and Solracha. These are 2 qualities. And Kanti is patient endurance. In Thai, it's Otton. And Solracha is translated as humility in English. Humility. In Thai, I think it's, what is it? Om Nom, something like that. and humble humility. These are important because this quality of suracha, of humility, we remind ourselves, this takes a long time. This is difficult practice. We don't need quick results, and we won't get quick results. We know it's going to take a long time, and we know that we might not be advanced practitioners. We might still, through the force of habit, we might still follow our greed. We might still follow our anger. We might still act on it. But if we admit to ourselves, this is where we're at, then we have that quality of suracha. We don't act like we don't say, I don't have anger. I've been practicing for 20 years. I don't have anger. But rather, if we have suracha, then we admit, oh, that's anger. Let's see that with mindfulness. Oh, that's suffering. That's dukkha. So we'll start to see it. I actually think of Longpo Viradamo when I think of the quality of suracha. And he's been a mentor for me for a long time since I ordained. Whenever he visited Abhayagiri, I always felt a strong connection with Longpo V. And he was always asking how I was doing, even when I was Paktao, even when I was Anagarika, he would ask me, how am I doing? And I remember when I was during my second pansa, and I was living at Abhayagiri, ordained at Abhayagiri, and lived there for my first 2 pansa before I came to Thailand. And Longpo V visited one day, and he said, how are you doing, Nyaniko? And I said, well, I think I'm not doing very good, because at first, when I started practicing, I try so hard, and my mind sometimes get very bright, like I'm in heaven. But also, sometimes my mind very low, like I'm in hell. And now I don't get that happy anymore, but I also don't get as sad. So, but because I'm not getting that great happiness I got at first, I think I'm not doing so well. He said, oh, you're more peaceful. You're more peaceful now. Oh, that's good. So at first we're addicted to the bliss, but then on the other side of that is the bad state. When we don't have our bliss, we feel very bad. And then eventually it evens out. We have this quality of upekkha, of equanimity. Oh, you're more peaceful. It's good. I always remembered that. More recently, just last January, Longpo V was here giving a retreat, and he slipped and fell and broke his right shoulder. So when he slipped and fell just out there, and then he came in to give the talk. And he gave the teaching, and he didn't say anything about it. He had just broken his shoulder, and he didn't say anything about it. He gave the teaching. So much metta. And then afterwards, what's wrong? We rush into the hospital. It turned out it's very serious injury. It must have been incredibly painful. Now, this is suracha, because when I think about somebody like Longpo Viradamo, he's so kind and so generous and so easy to be around and so nice. And sometimes the most kind and the most generous and the softest people are the most tough also. Actually, that's usually how it is. In my experience, 20 years as a monk, kindest, softest people tend to be the most tough. And the people who are hard on the outside and act tough, then when something bad happens, they tend to be the first ones to run away, the first ones to cry for help. It's interesting, isn't it? It's perhaps not always the case. You see the monks who are very soft on the outside, sickness or some sort of difficulty. That's when the Kanti Parami, you get to see it. It's quite amazing, quite beautiful. That's why Kanti and Soracha beautify a practitioner. And Luang Por Vi, when he came in and gave the teaching, he's quite genuine. He wasn't like, look at me, how tough I am, giving a teaching with a broken shoulder. It's out of metta. It's just his beautiful quality shining through. In the teachings, in the suttas, the Buddha says that you can know people, you can know what people's mind is like in different ways. Through living together with somebody for a long time, you can know their virtue, you can know their seen, you can know their level of sila. Through living together with somebody. In times of adversity, you can know someone's fortitude. In a time of adversity, in a time of difficulty, one's fortitude is known. Like Luang Por Vi, in a time of difficulty, when he broke his shoulder, you got to see the quality that he had that was not visible, his patient endurance, his Kanti Parami, fortitude. It is through conversation with somebody that their wisdom, their panya, can be known. And that's after much conversation, not just after a little. So the Buddha said there's these various ways you can know somebody, you can know their true character, their true qualities that are normally hidden, because we can't just judge a book by its cover. We can't just see the surface and know how somebody is, what their character is like. We have to be able to notice in these different situations, these different circumstances. So the Buddha recommends developing these great qualities of character, and that helps us in the meditation, that helps us in our practice with the development of sati. Metta, bhavana, we have metta for ourselves. When the crazy thoughts come up, the crazy mind comes up, we have metta for ourselves. Just tell ourselves, "My pen lie, no problem, doesn't matter. You're not acting on it. You're not a horrible person. If you acted on it, yes, maybe you would be a horrible person, but you're not acting on it. That's the protection. Sila is the ultimate protection. And sila sattha sampano, sila is perfected through faith. So we believe, we have to contemplate about our sila, think about it, how it protects us in these various ways. Just think of how crazy it would be if we just always acted what our mind thought. Just every thought we had, we just acted on it. How crazy that would be. But because we have sila, we don't do that. And when we take the precepts, like the 8 precepts, to a great extent, we don't act on the mind. So we see it more clearly. See it much, much more clearly. And that can be painful, that can be difficult. Meditation retreats, for most people, there will be at least some difficulty during their retreat. Tomorrow, you might experience some difficulty. The day after tomorrow, you might experience some difficulty. You probably will experience some difficulty not eating dinner. So tonight you were able to eat dinner, is that correct? You were able to have some dinner and then, but then tomorrow you won't be able to have that. So that could be difficult. That'll help us to see the mind more clearly. But if we stick through it, then normally the mind will settle, even though this is a shorter retreat. And actually, it's not quite true to say I haven't ever led a retreat. I have co-led retreats before, and I think the last Thanksgiving retreat, I pretty much led it, but it was a big team effort. It wasn't just me. And I have led day-long retreats, but I think this is the first time I've led a multi-day retreat where like I didn't have like a whole team. Although there is still, it's always a team effort. There is a team. The angel team is here. And so it's always a team effort. We're never completely alone in this. We never completely do something just on our own energy. That's Soracha as well. That's acknowledging that we always have help, that we're always held up by people. We're always held up by our friends who are supporting us. So normally at the beginning of a retreat, one would talk about the precepts. And I assume, having heard the translations, most people are familiar with all of these precepts. The one thing I wanted to say is in Thailand, there can be a lot of mosquitoes sometimes. So try to keep the first precept more strictly during the retreat. And if you have a mosquito land on you, don't just blindly hit it or kill it, but use sati and stop yourself. Sati is also when you stop yourself. That's when you're going to do something that might break the precept. Sati is, one translation is recollection. So you actually recollect the precept. Oh, right. I'm not supposed to kill anything. Just brush it off. Maybe put on some mosquito repellent. You need to. Entertainment, the seventh precept, we're setting our phones aside temporarily. I was actually I'm kind of addicted to my phone as well, even though I'm a monk. And I like watching these podcasts sometimes. And I watched a podcast recently about how when you use your phone, even when you get the smallest message, your brain shoots a dopamine. It shoots the happiness chemical. Like when you just even like you get a very small message, and that makes it addicting because we get that little hit of happiness. And so when we don't have that, we might go through withdrawals, just like when we quit smoking, we quit drinking alcohol, we go through withdrawals. So there might be some difficulties if you've decided to set your phone aside during this retreat. You might go through. I want to know how to say withdrawal in Thai. Utayangre, withdrawal. Lurk. Withdraw, ไม่ใจเย็น ลายาเสพมีความทุกข์มากนะอาจจะไม่มี comes up ยากนะ withdrawal. So we experience dukkha. Yeah, we experience some suffering because of giving up something that we're used to. I mean, one day. So I've experienced this as well. This is normal. So we can use sati to see this more clearly. And we know that it's just because there's a habit in the mind. And if we're not getting as much dopamine in the mind, as much of the happiness chemical as we normally get, that's okay. We can use sati and develop that upeka, samam state, very even. Keep the mind in a very normal state. we're not about getting really super deep samadhi, bliss. Perhaps those things can happen for some people. But for most of us, just keeping the mind in a normal state is good enough. Actually, it's not just good enough, it's the best. It's the best. It's what we're aiming for, because that's sustainable. That through that, we can start to settle. Through that, things can start to get better very gradually. The Buddha also said, with good practice, it's like the ocean gets gradually deeper. Gets gradually deeper. It doesn't just drop off. The ocean gets gradually deeper. So our practice is the same way. As we practice, as we keep things very normal, things gradually deepen. It's very important to remember. It's not that we're going to pop into some state right away. Again, for some people that might happen. But for most of us, it's going to be very gradual, very slow. And that's good. It's okay. We just keep going. We keep doing those retreats, keep trying to settle, do what we can. I think I'll leave it for this evening and let everyone have a bit of a rest and a quiet evening. And then we'll come back tomorrow, waking up at 5 or earlier if you want. Is the hall? Oh, I'll close the talk first. Okay, A Wang.